Our second reading is taken from the post-synodal apostolic exhortation by Pope Francis, Querida, Amazonia, to the beloved Amazon region. Chapter 4, an ecclesial dream, Inculturation, from paragraph 66. As she perseveres in the preaching of the Querida, the Church also needs to grow in the Amazon region. In doing so, she constantly reshapes her identity through listening and dialogue with the people, the realities and the history of the lands in which she finds herself. In this way, she is able to engage increasingly in a necessary process of inculturation, and that rejects nothing of the goodness that already exists in the Amazon cultures, but brings it to fulfillment in the light of the Gospel. Nor does she scorn the richness of Christian wisdom handed down through the centuries, presuming to ignore the history in which God has worked in many ways. For the Church has a varied face, not only in terms of space, but also of time. Here we see the authentic tradition of the Church, which is not a static deposit or a museum piece, but the root of a constantly growing tree. This millennial tradition bears witness to God's work in the midst of His people and is called to keep the flame alive rather than to guard its ashes. St. John Paul II taught that in proposing the gospel message, the Church does not intend to deny the autonomy of a culture. On the contrary, she has the greatest respect for it, since culture is not only an object of redemption and elevation, but can also play a role of mediation and cooperation. Addressing indigenous peoples of America, he reminded them that a faith that does not become culture is a faith not fully accepted, not fully reflected upon, not faithfully lived. Cultural challenges invite the Church to maintain a watchful and critical attitude, while at the same time showing confident attention. Here I would reiterate what I stated about inculturation in the apostolic exhortation Evangelii Gaudium, based on the conviction that grace supposes culture, and God's gift becomes flesh in the culture of those who receive it. We can see that it involves a double movement. On the one hand, a fruitful process takes place when the gospel takes root in a given place, for whenever a community receives the message of salvation, the Holy Spirit enriches its culture with the transforming power of the gospel. On the other hand, the Church herself undergoes a process of reception that enriches her with the fruits of what the Spirit has already mysteriously sown in that culture. In this way, the Holy Spirit adorns the Church, showing her new aspect of revelation and giving her a new face. In the end, this means allowing and encouraging the inexhaustible riches of the gospel to be preached in categories proper to each culture, creating a new synthesis with that particular culture. The history of the Church shows that Christianity does not have simply one cultural expression, and we would not do justice to the logic of the Incarnation if we thought of Christianity as monocultural and monotonous. There is a risk that evangelizers who come to a particular area may think that they must not only communicate the gospel, but also the culture in which they grew up, failing to realize that it is not essential to impose a specific cultural form, no matter how beautiful or ancient it may be. What is needed is courageous openness to the novelty of the Spirit, who is always able to create something new with the inexhaustible riches of Jesus Christ. Indeed, Inculturation commits the Church to a difficult but necessary journey. True, this is always a slow process, and that we can be overly fearful, ending up as mere onlookers as the Church gradually stagnates. But let us be fearless. Let us not clip the wings of the Holy Spirit. Here ends the second reading.